here. I see Tyler's here.
Yes, and all the commissioners are here.
Okay, excellent. Okay, then I'll go ahead and call the Wasco County Board of County Commissioners meeting to order on this lovely day of February 16th, 2022. So first off, are there any corrections or additions to the agenda, commissioners?
None here.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I would like to discuss putting together a letter to send down for the courthouse task force for consideration of our project. And we can discuss that later.
Excellent. Okay, I'll make note of that. Thank you. Kathy, don't let me forget.
I promise.
Okay, great. All right. Anything else? Is that it?
I don't have anything.
Okay, super. All right, let's move on to our discussion items. First thing is our COVID update, and I understand staff could not be with us today. So I guess I'll put on a different hat and as chair of the Board of Health, and I'll be giving the report this morning, and it will be abbreviated. But I did get some information from the as you can see, the cases are rapidly declining in Wasco County. Isn't this a lovely slide this morning? I mean, really, I am just tickled pink. So you can see these are, looks like these are weekly counts. Looks like we're still a little bit above 100 for the week ending February 6th. But that is very good news. Very lovely to see that. So next slide. It looks like hospital capacity is opening up a little bit in Region 6. And to remind folks, Region 6 is Hood River and Wasco County hospital beds. So the two hospitals there. So it looks like we have a little ICU capacity and some non-ICU capacity. So good news. It looks like just case counts and hospitalizations continue to drop. And as expected, testing volume is down significantly. That could actually affect some of those numbers we're seeing because only the tests that are done like at the health district or in doctor's offices or at the hospital are required to report positive results. So that's what you're seeing on that graph. And there could be a more positive folks out there. Many folks are starting to receive their free testing kits from the government, as well as being able to pick up testing kits at the health district. So just a note of interest there. And also the district has a lot of home kits to distribute. So you can certainly go by and pick up some home kits if you would like to. Very good news. We have a FEMA trailer coming to the Dalles beginning February 21st. It'll be here for a week downtown, which I think is a great location at the old Griffith Motor Building. So 5 and up can go in and get shots, booster shots for sure. Let's see. And then at the district, they'll start to offer 5 and up Wednesdays and Fridays COVID vaccines. They're going to pause the Readiness Center clinics for now and revert back to the health district for giving the vaccines. And the little pediatric vaccine, 6 months to 4 years, unfortunately is delayed. We thought it was going to be out at the end of this month, but the FDA wants more data. And they're looking to, it'll probably be released as a 3-shot series. Only the first 2-shot series was initially approved. So they want to wait until they have all the data on the 3-shot series for this age group. And then mask mandates, good news. Indoor mask mandate to be withdrawn no later than March 31st, 2022. And if our hospital capacities continue to increase, then we may see that mask mandate lifted before that date, which would be great. It will not apply to healthcare facilities, so those folks will still be masked up. Businesses will have the right to still require mask usage. It'll be up to the business. And the state K through 12 mask mandate will be also revoked no sooner than March 31st. And individual school districts may still opt to require masks. And we don't know what our school districts are planning to do quite yet. Now, I think that there's a big red warning down here from the health district that please continue wearing your mask until the hospital numbers go way down. And we are anticipating that to happen in March. So that's what I have. Let's see if I have anything else. I think that's about it. Are there any questions that I can answer from the commissioners? Maybe try to answer.
No, I don't have any. They did a good job. Thank you.
I'd like to try to stump you.
Yes.
No, you mentioned when you were talking about the mask mandates by the end of March, and then you mentioned hospital capacity. So I mean, I understand there's a relationship there, but is there like a metric that if it's met or something, then it will be lifted sooner than later?
Yeah, I have not seen that metric released from the state. So
Okay.
I'm sure they're watching it. I'm sure they have a metric, but I haven't seen that, at all sent out to,
Okay.
for us to see. So I kind of, I'm just going to make my own prediction. I think since they're sending out a teaser that it could be sooner than March 31st, that's a pretty good indication, I think, that they might indeed probably be lifting before March 31st.
Yeah, okay. It's always interesting because that information will get out there and then people are like, okay, that's great. But it's never like, as soon as you meet this threshold, we're going to do whatever it is we're talking about. So It's always like, you never know exactly what does that mean exactly. It seems like we're doing good, but then everything continues as the same.
And it'll be a statewide threshold. So they're
Right,
going to have to be
exactly.
looking at it statewide, not just individual county threshold, because we travel through all of Oregon and Washington and whatnot. So it'll be a statewide threshold of hospital capacity. Yeah.
And I think the thing people have to understand here is that our capacity is fairly small. So within a day or two, those numbers that were on the slides there could change substantially, and we could be in a pickle, so to speak, or the other way.
I mean, 3 ICU beds regionally does not give me a lot of confidence that I want to take my mask off and go into a lot of congregate busy settings with people who aren't masked at this point in time. So, we really need to see more hospital capacity, not only here, but throughout the state, because as most of you know, when you get sick enough, you may have to be transferred, and we still need to have beds available in those more tertiary care centers such as OHSU and Providence. And so we want to be sure that there's capacity there as well. Is that it, Scott?
That's all. I couldn't really think of any super big stumper.
Okay, and so I will open it up. I will tentatively open it up to the public. I don't know that I can answer everyone's questions, but I'll give it a try. And it looks like Roger has come on video. Did you have a question I can attempt to answer, Roger?
Yeah, what's the procedure for getting a test from the clinic? Should we call in, make arrangements? How does that work?
Great question. I do have a flyer here that's been out on social media. It looks like drive-through pickup of tests. And it looks like Tuesday, well, that was already happened. Today, you can pick them up from 12 to 1, just drive through. And tomorrow, 12 to 1, just drive up, and they should be folks outside ready to hand you some tests. Great question, Roger. Thank you. Okay, anybody else from the public have a question for me? Okay, I don't see any hands raised. Do you, Kathy?
Don't.
Okay, great. Phew. All right. Okay, let's go on to our next item, and it looks like in our discussion item, the AOC dues. And let's see, where's that?
So I don't know if Tyler wants to speak to this or not, but annually we are invoiced by the Association of Oregon Counties for the services that they provide. And what you find in your packet is the invoice along with some detailed explanation of what each of the additional costs provide to you. And I think right now Wasco County has only selected one of the three to participate in. So this is just for your review and kind of a cursory approval to move forward and continue to be a member of the Association of Oregon Counties.
Okay, comments, commissioners?
I would just say, I think AOC provides a great service for all counties in Oregon, and I definitely want to continue to be a member. I think the dues are, becoming more expensive, it's a significant chunk of money, but obviously what they do for us, I think, is pretty valuable.
Yeah, I would agree. Commissioner Kramer, did you have a comment?
And Madam Chair, not much else to say. They do great work. They're understaffed, and as I sit on the Budget and Finance Committee for AOC, the increase to this invoice was done in 21, and we're having discussions about our future, and I'll give you more on that as we develop more from AOC. And I'm in favor of keeping our membership alive with AOC. Thank you.
Oh, and thank you, Commissioner Kramer, especially for, really expending the time to be on that budget committee. And so we get all of the latest and greatest information on what's happening at AOC financially. So I concur. I think it's a really worthwhile organization. I don't know what we would do without them. We'd kind of be on our own, lobbying and figuring out bills and all kinds of stuff. So is that all you need, Kathy?
That's all I need, just consensus.
Okay, super. All right, thank you. All right, let's go on to our lipstick appointments. Looks like we've got a couple of those to do.
So Molly was not able to be here today, so I will take care of that one. These two appointments, LPSC, the Local Public Safety Coordinating Council, is very prescriptive in its membership. They have some at-large positions, but most of the others are dictated by statute as to who's to be a member. And one of those is a non-voting representative of OYA, and that's what one of your two, Eric, I can't remember, Barrera, I believe is his last name, is filling that role. The person who did fill it has retired. And then the other one is a representative from a nonprofit supporting domestic violence issues, I believe. And Tara Cook has traditionally filled that role. She's no longer the executive director for Haven. So Marcy Manning, who is the executive director, will be filling that role.
Great, thanks, Kathy. You did a great job there. Okay, commissioners, any thoughts or questions?
I would move to approve orders 22-007 and 22-008, appointing Marcy Manning and Eric Barrera to the Wasco County Local Public Safety Coordinating Council.
Second the motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
These, Madam Chair, these individuals will make a good addition to the LPSC as I participate on that board. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, hearing no further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 And chair votes aye. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to it looks like we have a fees policy to review. I think as a little bit of a background, we did discuss this a couple months ago when we did have our fee ordinance come up, and we did talk about perhaps using more of a standard metric for raising fees. And I think we did direct staff to come up with a policy, and they have done that. Oh, actually, Kathy, you were going to give this introduction. Did you want to?
You've done a great job. I was, one Kathy or the other Kathy. I think it's fine.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, so let's take a look at that fee policy, and I would go ahead and open that up for discussion amongst the commissioners first.
Madam Chair, that's pretty self-explanatory, gives us a guide, and if the guide doesn't work for us, then we modify the guide at the future and we move forward.
Okay.
I would
Scott?
agree. Yeah, I think it covers kind of what we had talked about and some of the kind of somewhat uncertainties, and trying to make it more clear when we deal with our fees. And it's clear for us, it's clear for the staff, and it's clear for the public. So I think it's fine. And as Steve said, we'll, if for some reason it doesn't pan out to work like that, we can kind of address it in the future. But I think for now, as a starting policy, I'm totally fine with it.
Yeah, I think I would agree. I think as a starting policy, it does, give us a standard to go by. I'm wondering about bullet number 2, where it says all fees shall be adjusted according to the consumer price index. I just want to clarify, that doesn't require that every department head raise fees every year, does it?
I'm going to let Kristen take that one, or Tyler.
Yeah, I can take it. So you wanted a policy by which we adjusted fees. And so what we put forward is that we would just trend with the CPI. And I think the only caveat there is that, some fees are statutorily determined. So they probably won't follow that. But all of our other discretionary fees will go up by CPI every year.
And so I was curious if there's any wiggle room in this policy, and maybe this is something we can adjust later if we find we need that. Because yes. I think what comes to mind is, like community corrections, for instance. I think sometimes raising fees yearly on folks that really have trouble being successful could actually put them more backwards in their recovery. So I wanted to know if there was just a little wiggle room for department heads to say, these fees we're not going to raise this year for this reason.
Yeah, so that's kind of why we originally felt that this policy was not appropriate to have in place, because the fee schedule process that you go through every year is the process by which you determine and set fees. And so, this just gives staff, I guess, direction to increase their fees by CPI. And that's what we'll do. But in reality, that's a step that we do anyway. And so your discussion and approval at the board level, that is the process that actually sets the fees. So you can change those however you see fit.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is just a standard that we can go by, but there's always room for discussion, right?
Yep. Really, this is just, where I would used to tell staff we're going to raise fees by a minimum amount or whatever, 3%, whatever the number is. This is just putting it on paper to give staff direction to raise fees by 3%. The reality is you'll determine that as part of the process that you have to go through statutorily to set the fees.
Okay, that's helpful.
And I do think I think it's good direction. I think what happens, what's happened to us, what's happened to many other entities that I've been involved with is they don't do that on a regular basis, small fee increases over time. And then what happens is you get to the point where you need a giant increase, and then it's a problematic issue for, people paying the fees and everything else. So I think this is good policy. And I think when we had talked about it earlier, when Kathy, I think you were the one that was like, are we using CPI or are we using 3%, and it's like, so I think it's good to just say, from a policy standpoint, we're using this component, which kind of maybe ties into what our cost of living, which should tie into what the actual costs of, performing these functions should be. But it's always good to kind of keep track and kind of measure it against other metrics or things or other places. So.
Yeah, okay, I agree. I just want to be sure that there's always discretion. And if there's a department head that, says, I'm not going to raise fees this year because, that they can always bring that forward. And this policy doesn't, say that they can't do that. And so I don't think it does. Does it?
Well, if you want to change, you might want to, modify that statement or something slightly to make sure that it's, I think the idea that, strong consideration is made to adjust fees annually based on CPI.
We can probably add a bullet point there that says final decision is made by the board at a public hearing. Something along those lines. I can work with Kristen to add that language.
I think that would be good. Commissioner Kramer?
So as we talk about bullet point number 2, all fees shall be adjusted accordingly. It doesn't state in there that they will be, that it's mandatory to adjust the fees. It just states that it will follow the CPI is all. And so I don't read a conflict there, but I'm willing to move forward. So.
Okay, I think I'm okay with that. I would agree with Commissioner Kramer. As long as, and I know that we always have discretion as a Board of County Commissioners when we actually approve the fee ordinance. So if a department head really wanted to, make a case that the fee it's not appropriate to raise fees at this time using any metric, they can always do that, and it's up to us to actually approve that ordinance. But if they are going to raise it, it shall be adjusted according to a standard metric.
Yeah, and I suppose, they can make the opposite argument that the fee needs to be increased by more, and here's the data and the reasons for that, which we've had both of those situations come before us. So
yeah,
I think the idea is it just gives some standardization for what that, instead of it's just, is it 3% or is it CPI? And
yeah.
In this case, the standard kind of fee adjustment is going to be CPI.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, and I appreciate staff putting this forward. I appreciate the discussion. Is this something we need to formally approve, or?
Yes, so the motion.
I would move to approve policy 22-001 to guide updates to the Wasco County Uniform Fee Schedule.
Thank you. I'll second the motion.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
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 And chair votes aye. Thank you. Well, we are moving right along. Commissioner Kramer, would you like to talk to us about the AOC Courthouse Initiative possible letter at this time?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Schwartz, Commissioner Hagee. We've presented to the task force on our courthouse remodel, and the task force has just been appointed, the review committee, I should say, and they will make a decision on March 9th of next month as to prioritize all of the participants within that upgrades for their courthouses across the state. We have until the 25th, next Friday, to submit our updates to our proposals. Mr. Klebs has done an outstanding job. We are now in the process of updating the fiscal side of these plans so that we can send along with our summary an update for ask of what we need to do the project. And I would like for us to have consensus to put together a draft letter to send our approval to this project so that we could have a little better standing with our committee members. So any questions? I know I kind of rambled on that, but any questions I could follow up with?
I guess I support it. I think it's great. Obviously, we have some projects that we've been talking about related to that, but can you maybe just talk just briefly about, and we don't have much time, but like how, because this is funding that would come from the state mostly, is that right? There's some match funding that goes into this, and essentially what, just so people understand, we have the Wasco County Courthouse, but state courts operate out of our courthouses. So, and they don't pay they don't pay leases to be in here, any funds necessarily to the counties to use their courthouses. So there are funds available. I can't remember exactly how that works though.
So this is AOC OJD putting this prioritization together. There are funds set from the justice side of things. And our proposal is for upgrades to the first floor, a second elevator, and then security for the courthouse as well, so that our folks up on the third floor have that security within their world that we need to take place. And so, yes, there would be a match of some sort from Wasco County, depending on where we land on the prioritization list. And so I just, looking at the 9 members of the list that was appointed by President Murdoch, 7 of the 9, I have their cell phone numbers. So I plan to reach to each and every one of them personally for our project. But I do believe that if we as a commission were to send a letter as Wasco County unified, that does send a better message. So that's all. I'm just trying to take care of the best lobbying we can put forth. So.
Yeah, no, I fully support that. That sounds great. I think the better we have the project scoped out and kind of detailed out, the better a committee can kind of understand what we're doing. So that, I know Matthew's been working on it, but there's a couple different projects. So figuring out how we can put that together in the most clear way would be good.
Right, and Matthew has done that, and the only thing that we need to add to that executive summary for the task force are the fiscals, and he is supposed to receive those this Friday, so that we can get that put together. So get a draft so that both can see it. So we have consensus to move it. So
sounds great. I'm fully on board.
Okay.
Yeah. Commissioner Kramer, do you know how many projects they would be considering?
I believe there were 8 to 10.
Okay.
And so I can't find Tyler Jan's number or email that lists all of them. I couldn't find it to give you that number, but there's 8 to 10 that are statewide.
Okay.
It typically, so there's a certain pot of money that they somehow determine, which is, millions of dollars, but not like hundreds of millions of dollars, I don't think. So then they have to determine how they're going to kind of parse that out. and different, some courthouses, there's been some courthouses that have been wanted full rebuilds, and like, I don't remember, Multnomah County or something was, maybe $100 million, or I don't know, huge projects. And some of them, like ours, might not be that big, but it will be significant for us.
Yeah, I would agree. I think courthouse security is of the utmost importance, for sure. And whatever we can do to get there, and I know that we've got money in reserves for match. We've had it in there for a while, and it would be great if we could put that to use in the near future and get things going. Okay, so let's see, we'll just need consensus on that?
I'm good.
I'm good.
Okay, as am I. So I guess Kathy, you'll draft a letter and work with Commissioner Kramer?
I will work with Commissioner Kramer and or Matthew to
Right.
get that done.
Okay, excellent. All right, looks like, oh, wow, okay. It looks like at this time, we're gonna move to the next agenda item. Moving right along, looks like we have a public road dedication that we need to do. And again, I have quite a script to read, so bear with me. I'm going to read this and then we'll move along in that. Okay, so it looks like file number, request, and location. This request is for an existing road to be named Homestead Road, to be dedicated into a public road of local access, not to be introduced into the county road maintenance system. The proposed road dedication will provide public access to residentially developed and developable properties associated with the preliminary approved Pine Ridge subdivision. The planning file number associated with the request is 921-21-000010-PLNG. The applicant is Austin Justison. The proposed road will begin approximately 0.38 miles southwest of the Emigrant Street and Womack Market Road intersection, approximately 0.24 miles southwest of the recently vacated Homestead Road entry point, and approximately 0.17 miles northeast of the Smock Road and Womack Road Market Road intersection. The proposed road proceeds through property owned by Johnny L. and Fred A. Justison and is specifically described as tax lot Township 4, South Range 12, East Section 14B, tax lot 400, account number 11461, zoned Womack Commercial and Womack Medium Industrial Zones, and tax lot Township 4, South Range 12, each Section 14, tax lot 400, account number 11464, zoned exclusive farm use A1 zone. Per the Wasco County Land Use and Development Ordinance, Chapter 2, Development Approval Procedures, and Chapter 2.1 Land Divisions, the tentative road plan was distributed to, reviewed, and approved by the Wasco County Public Works Director and Planning Director. All of the applicable conditions required for public road dedication have been achieved, and the Wasco County Planning Director has submitted to the Wasco County Board of Commissioners this request to dedicate Homestead Road as a public road of local access. Okay, so with that, I would ask staff if they'd like to present a report. So would that be, who is going to present from staff?
Daniel Doherty, Senior Planner, Chair.
Hello, Dan.
Hello.
Go ahead.
All right. So this should be fairly brief. All right, good morning, everyone. I am joined by the Wasco County Public Works Director, Arthur Smith, as well as the Wasco County Surveyor, Brad Cross, for any technical questions concerning the road you might have after this presentation. So this was in the packet you received, so you're already familiar with it, and Chair Schwartz provided a very detailed description of the affected properties. As you can see highlighted in red, this was the vacated segment of Homestead Road in favor of the proposed dedicated segment, which will connect to an existing dedicated public road called Homestead Road. The road will serve developable as well as developed properties, specifically those lots to be created by the Pine Ridge subdivision. So in this case, the tentative road plan was submitted and reviewed by the Wasco County Planning Director, the Wasco County Public Works Director, with the assistance of the county surveyor, where the plan was found to be in substantial conformance. And with the achievement of these 7 specific recommendations, the final road plan has been submitted to the board for final approval. These recommended actions have been achieved. They're fairly straightforward. I've received verbal as well as written confirmation from the Public Works Director that the road's design standards have been met. The road approach permit has been received. There was a preliminary title report has been submitted. No title issues were discovered. Deed of dedication is ready for recording. And we received a road maintenance agreement, which was recorded February 15th. The survey, the final survey, has been submitted to the Wasco County Surveyor and will be reviewed with the final Pine Ridge subdivision plat. And Public Works will place the road signs at the developer's cost. Those costs are estimated to be about $300. And so I'll open it for questions.
Okay. How about we hear if we have any, if our applicants would like to speak, and then we'll open it up to the board for questions of staff and the applicants. How's that sound?
That sounds fine, Chair.
Okay. So Arthur or Brad or the applicants, would anyone like to speak further?
This is Ben Basita, Tennyson Engineering. I can answer questions if needed on anything, but the synopsis that Daniel provided is on track with where we're at. So we're happy to have this thing ready to be recorded.
Okay, thank you. All right. Anybody else? Okay, commissioners, what questions might you have? Or Scott, you're unmuted. Did you have a question or a comment?
I do not have questions or any comments at this time. I think it's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
And I will agree with that. I think it's a good thing for our community and we need to move forward. So.
Okay, well, with that, I'll entertain a motion.
All right, I will give it a try. You want me to go for it, Steve?
Yeah, I can't. I'm slumming through it and I can't do it.
I'll give it a try.
Okay.
I move to approve order 20-006, accepting the dedication of a public access road lying 0.38 miles southwest of the Immigrant Street and Womack Market Road intersection, and approximately 0.17 miles northeast of the Smock Road and Womack Market Road intersection in the south 1/2 of the northwest 1/4 of section 14, township 4 south, range 12 east, Willamette Meridian, Wasco County, Oregon, to be named Homestead Road, file number 921-21-0010-PLNG. How's that? That's the longest motion I've ever made in my life.
Nicely done, Commissioner. I will second your motion. Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Just note that you didn't have to read as much as I did. So.
That is true. But for a motion, I mean, that's a big deal.
Okay, hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Thank you, staff. Thank you, Tennyson. Really appreciate it. So get to work, I guess. All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, let's see, where are we? We're a little bit ahead of schedule, so I think we'll go on to let's do our consent agenda. Let's see, it looks like we have some regular minutes to possibly approve from the 2nd of February. This month is marching on, isn't it? Wow.
Move approval of the consent agenda, Madam Chair.
And I'll second the motion.
Any questions, concerns, comments?
Nice
Yeah, I
job,
just
Kathy.
want to give a shout out to Ms. Clark for the exceptional job that she does for this.
I'll second that one too.
Yeah, I'll third that one. I'll tell you, she does an amazing job every other week for us. So
So you're very welcome. And yeah, that doesn't make the minutes my favorite thing. But thank you for the recognition.
all right. So we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Okay, great. All right. And I think at this time, we have some folks from the public on the call, and I'm going to open this up for public comment. So if anybody from the public would like to comment, please do so. Please unmute yourself or raise your hand. And please tell us what's on your mind. Okay, I'm hearing radio silence out there, so I think we'll go ahead and move on. Let's see. Is our staff here, Kathy, from Household Hazardous Waste?
Yes, Morgan is
Yes.
here.
Okay, Morgan, are you ready to jump in early?
Yes, I'm
Thank
ready.
Really appreciate that. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. So we haven't, okay, I hope I don't embarrass myself, but I don't think that I have met you.
No, I think this is our first time.
Okay, would you tell us what your position is? And
My name is Morgan and I am the Communications and Outreach Assistant for the Tri-County Hazardous Waste and Recycling Program. And I am here today to seek approval on the purchase of an app for our website's homepage. The Waste Wizard app is hosted by Recollect and is widely used by cities and waste management operations for recycling education and information. This app allows us to personalize the information presented to users based upon their zip codes and providing them with recycling information accurate to their location in the Tri-County area. Users are able to type in an item they are unsure about and find out if it's recyclable, garbage, or hazardous waste and where they can dispose of it. We believe this app will help Tri-County residents get the recycling answers they are looking for, while also being able to update the information in real time as the rules change. And I'm going to, I was going to share my screen and show the app, but I don't seem to have permissions.
You should. I made you a co-host, so down at the bottom of your screen, there should be a share screen button.
Yeah. I only see the Zoom screen as an option for me to share. Not advanced. Oh, maybe that. Okay, sorry, I see it now. I think you guys can probably see my email. Okay, sorry about that. Here we are. So this is the Waste Wizard app. And popular searches are shown at the bottom. As you can see, like Christmas trees during the holiday times, televisions. You can click on it and it'll show you where you can drop that off, and we'll have it tailored to our specific area. You can also type in like aluminum cans, and you can see where in the area. It also has some flexibility, like if you type in one thing, you can see a bunch of different options that might fall under that same category. And another part of it is the calendar, which we will use to inform people about our hazardous waste events, and folks will be able to get a reminder by putting in their email. And so that concludes my presentation. Any questions?
Thank you, Morgane. It's really nice to meet you. And I especially love your backdrop because it makes me think that spring is coming closer. So, and this is a new position for you, right?
Yes.
So welcome aboard. It's really nice to have you. And this looks like a very interesting app. Commissioners, do you have some questions or comments for Morgane? Yes, Commissioner Hagee.
Well, first I would say we actually need some more snow, but I understand you want spring, but we're still in winter time, so we need more snow. I'm ready for spring in about 2 months.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll talk about that later.
I had a comment. So I went and you in your information, I don't remember where it was, but somebody has this operating within their system. So I went there and looked, and it was interesting, and I like the app. I was going to ask the question, like, is it an app or does it run on a website? And it looks like it runs both places. So you can download an app and can have it on a mobile device, but you can also just go to the website, which I think was good, because I was a little concerned if it was just going to be an app, then, you know, people might not want to have that app on their phone, who knows, but that was good. It was interesting though, I searched for ballasts. So like, you know, ballasts, which are part of lights, which are listed in your guys' program quite often. And it didn't, that system there, it didn't even come up as an option for you to look at it, which was interesting to me. So it was just kind of the question I had related to that was, if you're looking for something that's not in the system, that system seems to just give you no information. Like it doesn't say, we don't have it, call this person or chat. I mean, it was kind of interesting how it just was like, it was no information. It wasn't nothing helpful. So that was just kind of a comment.
Yeah, so one thing that we will be able to do, or that if something gets typed in that we don't currently have in the system, people can choose to have a message sent to us asking for that to be included. And then I think, so we can add as many items to the list as we want. And I think we're going to focus a lot on the hazardous waste side as well. So we will include items like ballast that are really common that come to our hazardous waste events.
Cool. Okay, that sounds great. I had a couple more questions. Let me ask maybe the first one. So I'm trying to think, like, there's the Household Hazardous Waste Steering Committee, and I get a little confused about it. And that there's a Solid Waste Committee. Steve knows the answer to all these questions, but my basic question is, has the group that's overseeing your guys' operation, which is not us, it's like all the cities and stuff, have they reviewed this, and are they supporting that we move forward with this?
Yes, we got approval from our steering committee last week.
Perfect. Okay. That was probably in there and I missed it. The final question I had was, how will you know this is successful? I mean, it's a fair chunk of change to pay, and it's an ongoing kind of subscription thing. And if I have a concern, it's just that, will it really be used that much? And is it really going to be that helpful? So I'm wondering, do you have some metrics that you're looking for, so that, you know, let's just say at the end of the first year, you have, like, I don't know, 500 searches on or something, which isn't very many over a year's period. Is there some point that you say, yeah, you know, it's a nice thing to have, and some people have been benefited by it, but you know what, we can spend our money in a better way?
Yes, absolutely. So one thing that does come with the Waste Wizard app is a detailed analytics report that we get, I think monthly, or how we're able to access it as we need it. And then we've also decided that we'll use this year as a trial run to see how successful that app is, and then decide from there whether or not it's something we want to continue with. Or
Okay. Do you have a sense right now of how much activity you're hoping to see on the site? Any sense? I mean, I'm just curious. I would hope it'd be widely used and often used, but
same. Well, we'll definitely do some promotions and advertising on it so that we get the word out throughout the community. Right now, not entirely sure what how many people will be using it, but our website has been trafficked a lot more, especially with the sign up for the hazardous waste event. So I think people are becoming more familiar with our website. So hopefully that'll increase with the app.
perfect. All right, thank you.
Yep.
That's all I had.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, Morgane's a great addition to the team, doing exceptional work, updating the website and working on this project. The steering committee held a meeting last week, unanimously approved this moving forward. The budget committee that met shortly thereafter also recommended funding this as well. So this is definitely something that we really need to have. I'm surprised, Commissioner Hagee, you being the techie that you are, don't understand that the millennials out there that are 42% of our population now, this is all they want. They want to look things up on the internet, and they want to look things up on an app. And I think it's time that we embrace this and move forward, especially with Senate Bill 582 right around the corner, going to help us with our recycling efforts. So Morgane, thank you for becoming part of our team and jumping in with both feet and getting us up to speed. And with that, Madam Chair, if you have no questions, I'd like to make a motion.
Yeah, I don't really have any questions, but I do have a couple of comments. Yeah, I think this is great. And I agree with Commissioner Kramer that, I do think we have to use all kinds of venues for getting the message out on how to do this, because it does seem to change sometimes. And again, as Commissioner Kramer mentioned, Senate Bill 582 will probably see some more changes coming down the pike. Yeah, and I think you guys do a great job. I get the mailings, but guess what? They go in the recycle, and then I forget what I'm supposed to do. And so being a consumer, I will definitely have my husband download this app. Okay, so he is up to date all the time on how to go about this. And I wondered if you could just speak a moment about, there is a change in the program that Commissioner Hagee or you mentioned. We now need to make an appointment to drop off. Could you just elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure, yeah, so the Hood River event specifically has become a little overbooked. People have a tendency to show up all at once, and then there's periods of time where it kind of lulls. And so we as a team came up with the idea that registration might be a good idea. So moving to an appointment-based system. So 10 available slots per every 15 minutes. We thought that this would provide some relief for the workers, as well as just decreasing people's time in line, because sometimes folks are lined up all the way out the transfer station doors. So what we're doing now is people come to our website and they click on a link and they sign up for a time that works for them. And so from 9 to 2, there's 200 slots.
Wow. Are people getting in and signing up?
Yes, they are.
Great. And that's happening in Wasco County as well, not just Hood River, right?
It is. Yeah, we're trying it out in Wasco as well.
Okay, great. Well, I've certainly been in one of those lines. So I'm anxious to register and decrease that time. So Commissioner
Yeah.
Hagan, you had your hand up. Look at you putting your hand up. Wow.
Yeah, sorry. You just, now that you asked that question, I had another question. So I think the idea of the, registering is fine, is good probably. But what if people don't register? What if they didn't know to register? What if they just want to come? How does that work? Do they just like, thanks, but no thanks? You got to wait till next time.
So if we have available slots, we will pencil them into that time. Just say, hey, could you come back at this time? We're going to be kind of lenient for the first couple, and then hopefully by then people will know what the system is and just start moving towards that. We got this idea from Yamhill County. They do the same thing, but with like 900 cars. So they had a lot of success with integrating it within like the first couple events. So we're kind of hoping to have a similar situation.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, yeah, if I may, just to add to that, the events, they're this weekend, Friday and Saturday this weekend, but what we were finding with our events, folks were bringing material that could be recycled 6 days a week. And so that was where some of our issues were. And Morgane's done a great job of upgrading our website so that you can see the materials that can be recycled at the disposal sites Monday through Saturday in hopes to reduce some of that flow so that we're collecting the hazardous waste that we really want to get out of the stream and do what we're truly meant to be doing. So we're going to see a lot of good changes and a lot of good things come out of this. So thank you.
Okay. Any further, Commissioner Hagee, did you? Okay.
No, I was just trying to remember if Steve made the motion and if I second or if he hadn't made the motion.
No, he has not yet. So.
Okay.
No, Madam Chair, I'll move to approve the Recollect Subscription Services Agreement.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Any further discussion? I think we've put Morgane through the ringer. So I think on her first presentation to us. So, okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 And chair votes aye. Thank you very much, Morgane. Good luck with everything. Thank you. Okay, we're still running a little early. Is Matthew with us yet? Don't see Matthew.
I don't see him.
Okay. How about Jill? Can we skip down to see? I see Jill's with us.
Jill is here.
Okay. Can we skip down, Jill? Is that okay with potential refund credit requests? All right. Let's see. Moving down the line here. Debbie Jones. I don't see Debbie Jones either. All right, Arthur.
Arthur's here.
Yay! All right, Arthur. Thanks for hanging in there with us, Arthur, all morning. So would you like to talk to us about the Public Works equipment purchase?
Yeah, if that's all right. I wasn't sure how to notify you, otherwise taking off that I'm here, but yeah, absolutely. So good morning, Arthur Smith, Public Works Director for Wasco County. So hopefully you had a chance to read the memo. So in May of last year, our 1993 Great All wheeled excavator suffered a catastrophic failure. It's actually deemed unrepairable. So we use that equipment basically daily for about the past 28 years. And again, I don't want to bore everybody with the versatility and the importance of that equipment, but the key point is because it can travel at highway speeds and because Wasco County logistically obviously is pretty expansive, we can go from a flood repair work in Mosier down to remove debris from under the Bake Oven Bridge to out in Dufur. And because it can travel at highway speeds, it's You don't have to load it on a lowboy. You don't have to have flag cars. I mean, you can just get it and go. So it's a very versatile, very important piece of equipment for us, but it's also very expensive. So at the time, last spring, we decided that certainly there must be options out there, and we decided not to pursue purchasing a new piece of equipment at that time. The delivery on a new piece of equipment was 12 to 15 months, we were told from the dealer. And so we said, boy, we'll look at some other options. So we explored those over the last 9 to 10 months. Rentals are almost impossible. There was nothing in even the Northwest. The only opportunity was actually somewhere in California at $15,000 a month, not including travel and mileage. We didn't think that was a good deal. They would not sell it to us directly. It was only to be used for rentals. So that was an area that we decided not to pursue. The used equipment, it's just not out there. There is no such thing anymore as good used equipment just sitting around. It's so desirable and it's so overpriced. There was a 20-year-old machine in Colorado, but they were asking, it's just incredible the amount of money people are asking for their used equipment. So again, that was deemed not an option to pursue. Luckily, our generous neighbors to the west, Hood River County, have an equally old Gradall. And they allowed us to borrow it over parts of the summer and fall, and then even now a little bit in the spring, but they actually need it back. But they literally got us, we limped through our maintenance schedule last year because of the generosity of Hood River County. So moving forward, like I said, Pape Machinery, which is the Portland dealer we were working with to, last year to try to look at our options, notified me that they had recently taken they'd taken shipment of a new Gradall. Their initial thought was they were going to use it for limited rentals and demos. But I had some conversations with them, and they actually have extended us the opportunity to purchase. So the county public works does have a road equipment fund. It's currently, and help me, Mike Middleton, it's either between 1.6 and 2 million. I can't remember what the level is in that fund currently. So we do have funds available. Obviously, this was not something that I had budgeted for through our regular process, but it's an immediate opportunity that I guess I'll use the word begging to take advantage of. Luckily enough, Senator Wyden did manage to attach a 3-year extension of the Secure Rural Schools funding to one of the federal bills that came through. Basically what that does is increases our timber revenue from the actual cut, which is about $100,000 to around 500,000. So it's a net gain of about 400 grand or so. We did not expect to see that money until next year. And then the Oasis group informed us that we actually will receive that funding actually will start in this current fiscal year. So I would, again, it's almost a net zero transaction, but my request is to take the needed funds from the equipment fund and then to make the transfer of those Secure Rural School dollars back into that fund to balance it out. But again, with the machine actually sitting in Portland where we have an opportunity to acquire it now is really something I never thought would happen. And that is why I came forward with the request today. Just for a little legal side note, so Gradall is under a Sourcewell contract, so it's a cooperative procurement, and obviously under our public contracting regulations, that is allowed without going to formal bid. So that is why I've included the Sourcewell contract and the actual bid that Gradall submitted to me in your packet.
Thank you, Arthur. Okay, commissioners, do you have any questions or comments for Arthur?
I had a quick question, but you actually answered it. I didn't understand what the federal infrastructure bill was, but really it's SRS, so it's Secure Rural Schools. And now that you mentioned that, I totally understand it. So it's a very I would say it's a very weird piece of equipment. I mean, even seeing it working, it's very useful in many ways, as Arthur has said in the report here. But it's a very unusual piece of equipment.
And it's really, truly, Scott, it's kind of specialized more for the general maintenance, like a contractor will get an excavator because they're set up on one development site and it doesn't have to move around much. Whereas, like I said, for Wasco County, we could be in Mosier, we can be in Antelope, we could be anywhere. And this literally allows us to get there at highway speeds without having to load it on a second piece of equipment or have flag cars. But that comes with a price. Because you can buy a tracked excavator for, you know, 350,000 and a grade all is, you know, 472. So it obviously there's a trade-off there.
And it's, you know, it's interesting. I mean, based on what you've said here, it's pretty clear that because this is a pretty unique piece of equipment, it's not really like sitting in people's yards, you know, because there's not a lot of people buying this stuff. I imagine that there's a lot of road departments that have kind of figured out that this is a really productive piece of equipment for what kind of you guys use it for. And probably maybe some people haven't even figured out, they're still buying the excavator and hauling around with the low boy and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, like I said, so us in Hood River County, a lot of the Eastern Oregon counties have them. Actually, in Texas, there are quite a few for some odd reason. Minnesota, I just didn't think the commission wanted to fly me back to Minnesota to go look at a used piece of equipment. But.
No, I think this is great. I see it working all the time, and I'm always like, "Whoa, what was that?" So no, I'm on board.
Okay, Commissioner Kramer.
Yeah, I'm just ready to, I'll make a motion to authorize Public Works Director Arthur Smith and our finance team, whoever needs to be involved to make this purchase happen.
I'll second it.
Okay, any further discussion?
I did have one other question. I just was looking at the grade all pricing sheet here. Estimated ship date, it has no estimated ship date. And I'm, based on what you said, this thing's sitting somewhere available basically right now, right?
It's at Pape Machinery in Portland, and the shipping date is whenever we can get guys down there to drive it back. So,
Right on.
I mean, pending the purchase order through the finance department.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great news. The only comment I would have is I really appreciate the picture, Arthur, because I want you to know that my 4-year-old grandson is the one that is educating me on all construction equipment, because I think he has every Tonka toy in the construction field, but he doesn't have this one. So I might be able to tell him about this one if I can find a Tonka toy. So awesome.
I don't think you're going to find this one.
I hope I could. But anyway, I've learned about skid steers and all kinds of stuff from my 4-year-old. So anyway, things I never knew before, but I am totally on board, and thank you for the presentation and the photo.
Oh,
so
thank you. Appreciate the support.
With that, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I heard none. So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Scott, did you vote?
Aye.
Yes, I voted yes.
Okay, and chair votes aye. Thank you, Arthur. Thanks for jumping in early. Appreciate it.
No, thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay. Okay, let's see. Has Matthew joined us now? Had Kathy kind of
He has.
down. All right. Hi, Matthew. You're going to talk to us about Brownfields grant agreement.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you, County Commission, for the time this morning. Included in your packet is a brief memo summarizing the item before you today, along with the contract under consideration. In essence, this is building upon some of the work that we've been discussing in regards to improvements to the Annex A facility where North Central Public Health currently is. The City of the Dalles, Wasco County, Port of the Dalles, Regional Solutions, and Business Oregon have previously all come together to form a brownfield program that we were able to leverage and in partnership utilize to conduct an assessment of the building, and specifically some of the asbestos concerns on the second floor in particular. We've completed that work and have those results and submitted for an additional brownfield grant directly from Business Oregon that is designed to address the actual cleanup. So the first grant from the City of the Dalles' Brownfield Coalition was that due diligence and assessment work. The grant that we have before us today is to do the actual cleanup and removal of the asbestos. And so that grant is in the amount of $60,000 with a $6,000 match. And I've begun to solicit bids for that work and believe that amount should be sufficient to cover what we are considering. It is also the maximum grant award that Business Oregon will award. So we'll have to work within what we get. And the contract included in your packet today is we are seeking approval and authorization to have the chair sign off on that contract. And then we can set up the drawdown and mechanisms to utilize that grant and continue moving forward on this project. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you. Commissioner Hagee?
Couple of questions. So where we did a study. So where is the asbestos in that building?
So the asbestos primarily on the second floor is underneath, it's the mastic or the glue that is underneath the carpet. So all of the asbestos in the building is currently encapsulated and does not pose a risk. But as we remodel that space and in essence rip that carpet up to replace with new carpet, it's that opportunity to abate that asbestos and as that is broken and disturbed, it could become aerosol. And at that time, we want to control and mitigate that. And so we'll bring in an abatement company to do that removal and then work with contractors to do the carpet replacement and once that work is completed. There's also some very limited asbestos on the main floor of the public health building, specifically in 2 clinic rooms that have carpet in them. We desire a linoleum flooring in clinic rooms anyways, and so we are going to tackle that portion as well. And actually in the basement, there's some asbestos wrap, pipe insulation wrap that is kind of the tertiary objective here. And I'm hopeful that with the bids that we get, we can include that portion as well.
Okay. Interesting. It seems like a really high number to take carpet out. I understand. I know how it all works, but yeah, it still seems high. That's fine. We can talk offline. The other question I had was,
if I may, Commissioner, this is the grant award, not the actual bid amounts. So
right.
The bid I'm soliciting, ideally they come in less than this.
Okay. Well, it sounded like when you were talking about, does it include replacing the flooring then as well as the removal? Or is this the asbestos abatement is just for the removal of and dealing with the asbestos stuff?
It's just for the removal of
okay. Well, I'll be interested to see what the number is. The other question I had was obviously this is related to the actual active work, but when you're working, they're going to have to work when the clinics close. I guess nobody's really on the second floor, so that's pretty easy, but that first floor is an active clinic space. So obviously we'll have to time that.
Correct. We'll have to coordinate schedules and seal off those portions of the building. And again, that's why some of the companies I'm looking at are certified to conduct this abatement work and will control the airflow to make sure anything that's been aerosolized does not escape.
Sure. That's all I had. Thanks.
Okay. Anything else, commissioners?
No, Madam Chair, I'll move to approve the Oregon Business Development Department Brownfields Redevelopment Fund Grant Contract for asbestos cleanup at Annex A.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 And chair votes aye. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, Jill's popped in. Good morning, Jill.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. Jill Amory, your Assessor and Tax Collector for Wasco County. We have before you this morning 2 central assessment or utility company appeals. These are large enough to trigger a potential refund account, and that guidance is provided by ORS. And so the first is CenturyLink. They now are referred to as Lumen Technologies. They also have acquired Level 3, so they have grown. Level 3 also has their own appeal that is being held in abeyance until the CenturyLink appeal is decided. This is a multi-year appeal. We already have set aside $1 million. The contested amount currently is $18.5 million just for the current year. So we're requesting an additional $200,000 be set aside for this appeal, which would put $1.2 million in a potential refund account. This is multi-year, and I apologize, I don't remember how many years it goes back. It goes back, I would guess, 4 or 5 years. It's quite a few. There's a new appeal made by Gas Transmission Northwest LLC, and it's contesting strictly the value of their equipment in the state of Oregon. They're in Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and those states also do a bit of an apportionment. And so they're saying, gosh, not all of that equipment is actually in the state of Oregon, and I disagree with the value that you have on it. And so theirs is pretty basic. CenturyLink's is a bit more complex in what they are appealing. But the gas transmission, we have about $8.2 million of contested value in Wasco County, and I'm requesting that we set aside $108,000 in that potential refund account. So the total for those two would be $308,000. I'm requesting that we do a set aside and put in potential refund accounts at this time. And I'm happy to answer any additional questions. I know that was a quick overview. Especially the central assessment utility accounts are a little bit more complex in possibly what they're appealing or what might be at play there.
Okay, Scott, you're unmuted. Did you have some questions or comments to start with?
No, I was just gonna tease Jill about, we should have Bob to go over these appeals. Can you imagine?
I love our BOPTA people, so I'm just going to say yes.
So BOPTA is the Property Tax Appeals Board, and we don't deal with, and I was trying to think, but like stuff that's centrally assessed, like, which basically means it's assessed by the state. I'm assuming these appeals went to the state, is that right?
They did. These are actually a little bit different signifier than that even, Scott. They're called utility companies, so they meet a certain requirement. They're rail cars, information companies, companies like that, and they don't go to the local level. They do go directly to the state because of the complicated way. Again, they do an apportionment. So say just for gas transmission, they're in 10 counties across the state for a total of $220.6 million that's contested. They have a total of $720 million just on the tax roll this year. How they're assessed and those valuations are quite complicated. So they have the specialists at the state that can do that.
So how does that, I'm just, now this is silly, but I'm just asking the question. So the state is assessing it like centrally, and then they apportion it out, and then they send you, our assessor, they say the value in your county is, 57.2 million. And then that's what you put on our books from it. And then we send them a tax statement based on that value.
That is correct.
Okay. And then they appeal it to the state. And then the state tells us, oh, by the way, they've appealed it. So get ready.
Correct.
Cool. All right. Thanks.
Yeah, good questions. Commissioner Kramer, did you have anything?
No, I'm in favor of the request, but it opens up another set of questions. How long, maybe this is for our legal counsel, but how long do they get to do this? I mean, I've been hearing about this for the last 9 years, and at some point, when do the courts make a decision and rule on this stuff? So just a rant. Thank you.
Yeah, actually, if I may have a minute to address that, Steve, you're correct. And it was Charter Communications that was about a decade long. It was very long. And I do know that our association and our assessors across the state really put some pressure on the state to settle it, because that's a really long time to be an appeal. And we're talking very large dollars. They since have changed. The potential refund credit is different. They only can acquire the interest in the account during that time. But the previous regulations actually allowed for them to acquire interest at the refund rate, which is astronomically high. So of great expense as well to the districts and the counties. So things have changed. The state is hearing. They need to try to settle things more timely. I think that they are improving.
Thanks, Jill. Just a question. So do these utilities actually pay us and then we have to set aside money in case they win the appeal and then we have to pay them back, basically?
Correct.
Okay.
With interest.
With
interest, but now only the interest. So they keep it separate. So CenturyLink is tracked and then gas transmission is tracked. So whatever is acquired in that account where it's sitting, that's the only amount of interest they will get. And then on the flip side of that, Chair, is if they lose the case, then we take that money and we redistribute it to the districts.
And just for fun, how did it used to be on the interest side?
So
if I remember correctly, yeah, it was like we were paying like 12% or something like that. It was crazy.
It's either 13 or 16. I apologize.
Okay.
It's
so it was
high.
a great investment for them. They could pay the money, and if they won the appeal, it was like they were going to Vegas and cashing out on the counties.
Yep.
Yeah. It's much better the way it is. And that was a piece of legislation we changed just a couple of years ago.
Good job on that. Corporations doing their thing. So
very large ones.
Yeah. Okay, now help me out. Did we have a motion yet? I can't remember.
Not yet.
Okay, I would be happy to entertain one. Do we need one?
Yep. Pursuant to ORS 305.286, I move to set aside $308,000 in potential refund accounts, representing an additional $200,000 for CenturyLink and $108,000 for Gas Transmission Northwest.
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, and chair votes aye painfully. So, okay, the motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jill.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you very much. Okay, just a little ahead of schedule, and it looks like Debbie Jones is ready to present to us on the opioid memorandum of understanding. Good morning, Debbie.
Good morning. Glad that Kathy gave me a little ding and said, hey, we're early. So what this is actually very similar to a contract or member of understanding that you signed probably about 2 years ago with the overdose prevention grant that we work with North Central Public Health District on this issue. One of the things that Wasco County, Youth Think in Wasco County took on was a peer mentor partnership. And at that time we were doing that through Bridges to Change. And they very ethically contacted us end of last fall and said they'd received quite a bit of money through the some of the money that's coming out from Measure 110, that first initial funding, and wanted to make sure that they were not supplanting dollars. So they said, we have the staff that we need. We don't need this funding. And we did not want to just necessarily turn it back to the state. So we had been working with other partners, and this one that you see is very similar to what the still scope of work is on the peer mentor program with those that are kind of in that between stage of where we're doing harm reduction and helping them get to treatment, to recovery. And this will be, that position now will come out of Mid-Columbia Center for Living. So that is something we're really excited about. Our overdose task force was excited to be able to continue this work. So that is the formal agreement, so we can start helping fund that position, and we're picking up part-time of the cost of that. And it's contractual, and we have it at least for another year, and then we just need to see how things flush out, if this funding is going to be available and what happens with the burn grant.
Thanks, Debbie. Can you just keep in mind, well, since you just said it, could you please refresh, what is the burn grant?
The burn grant actually stands for Behavioral Health Resource Networks. And that is my understanding of the results of Measure 110, which was the decriminalization of certain drugs, that a lot of the money that was going towards marijuana, different funding streams are now coordinated, and they're going towards more treatment efforts and harm reduction. So Wasco County, I was able to work under Molly Rogers, really took the lead for our county. And we did look into if there is that funding comes through, what either it's the state funding or with the burn, we wanted to look at, hey, how do we make sure this is sustainable? And we feel like it's very important, but it is just scratching the tip of this effort. So with the burn, when I just speak of that, is that we are trying to think long-term. We don't want this to just be, hey, we're going to fund this position for 6 months. People need help a lot longer than 6 months.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So behavioral health, what does it stand for?
Resource Network. In every county, I believe, it's going to be, I don't know if I can use the word requirement, will have a burn within their county. And it's not so much that it's a physical building, but it's that resource network. And in the application that we turned in, you think North Central, Columbia Gorge Health Council, One Community Health, Mid-Columbia Center for Living, I believe next door, I might be missing someone, all got together, and it's like, how do we start addressing this issue collaboratively?
Great.
So it's a step in the right direction.
Great. Okay. Questions, commissioners?
Just to follow up, Madam Chair, there was $302 million of this set aside, and so there's a whole lot of different organizations that the grants can go to. We've applied for within our region for $8.7 million of that money at this point. So, we're trying to grab as much as we can to provide for these services. So this particular piece that we're dealing with today just goes hand in hand with all of that. Thank you, Debbie, for all your work.
Yeah, and just to make sure for clarity, this is separate funding,
right,
from the grant application that Commissioner Kramer mentioned. Yeah. This is
absolutely,
yeah, but we wanted to make sure we didn't want to give back $32,000. We wanted to find a way to serve our community. So this kind of helps our need in our community, and I think it helps Center for Living with the services they want to be able to apply. And when you do this official part, and since you are running a tiny bit ahead of schedule, I would like to just take 2 minutes to add on to this subject matter at the conclusion of your voting.
Oh, okay, sure. We will give you that time. And Commissioner Hagee, did you have some questions for Debbie?
I would like to move to approve the memorandum of agreement between Wasco County and Mid-Columbia Center for Living for opioid abuse prevention services.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner, and I will second your motion.
Okay, any further discussion?
I would just for the record, I'll probably abstain just because I'm on both boards. So.
Okay, then I will call for the vote. So all of us two in favor, please say aye.
I,
And chair votes aye and one
And I'll
abstention.
abstain.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you, Debbie. Now, did you want to address us on?
Yes,
something else, or-
on the same issue, I know I spoke probably a year ago, and we are making some progress on this. So I will talk to Kathy White to see about getting on time in the future for a more extended presentation as far as what we've been doing with these funds, with the overdose prevention funds, the progress we've been making. I can tell you that we now are city and county law enforcement are a part of ODMAP, which is the overdose detection mapping platform, where anytime first responders come upon a scene where it's a suspected overdose, whether that's heroin, meth, whatever it is, there's a way to report that in this system and be able to track whether Narcan was used. It is not the system that we use for, hey, was there an actual drug overdose? But it allows us to start mapping what exactly is happening in Wasco County. We use that as part of our hope for soon emergency response plan, so that if we did say there was, whether it was in our county or maybe it was in Jefferson or Deschutes, kind of that, it actually could even be over in Washington, where maybe we see a sudden spike, and then we can see that pops up. Everybody's aware of it, as opposed to, you know, the past has been, we've had these overdoses or deaths and we haven't been able to track or connect them. This gives us the ability, if there is a potential spike, and especially maybe we have some drugs that are laced with fentanyl, it allows us to see, wow, we've had maybe 3 or 4, which is very unusual for us. It gives us a chance to connect with HIDA, which is the high drug trafficking group, and they actually can start investigating. And so we could get announcements out, you know, about potentially pills that are laced or whatever we need to do for our community. So it goes hand in hand with that work. So I'm very appreciative of both our city police and county for saying, hey, we want to look at that. And we want to be able to come back to you and say, hey, this really is the data on this issue. So you can kind of, you know, and we're not hearing rumors or anything like that. We have noticed already that we are seeing, I think it's always been out there, because now we're tracking better and using this, the state and this local data system, that we're getting a better, clearer picture of what needs to be done. We did have it reported that just this last Saturday, there was a, in the police log, that someone was out cleaning up on Taylor Lakes, and over 100 needles were found. And so, you know, we're going to look at that to see, okay, what harm reduction tools, policies can we put into place? And, you know, we definitely want to bring that back to the city and the county to keep you aware of that. So I want you to feel good about, hey, we are tracking this, we are on top of it. Unfortunately, we do have a problem, but the more data we can look at, we can start seeing how to approach that better. My big concern, and this will be my landing point here, and then I'll let you guys go on with your meeting, is that we make sure that, you know, you think is trying to make sure that our real main efforts are prevention. We want people to do the things that we can for people, young people, old people, whatever, not, excuse me, older people, who this is not a tragic tale or a stressor in their lives. And so we've been really trying to dance this fine line between prevention and harm reduction. And often harm reduction gets a lot, right now, a lot of the play. And we are working with our state partners and federal partners to make sure that harm reduction does not become the new prevention. We need them to go hand in hand, because we believe prevention really starts with that family. And then also harm reduction is preventing death, so that that person we still can prevent and get them into treatment, and that recovery happens in that prevention and behavioral health promotion, you know, that continuum happens. So we're looking at it that way. I know the county has put their hat in for the opioid dollars as far as the settlement. We encourage, when you guys get to the point, when that comes through, as how to funding is to look at it both as an opportunity to prevent and harm reduction. So thank you for the opportunity. And my soapbox is starting to sway, so I better get off.
Thank you, Debbie. That was very informative. I really appreciate it. Kind of putting, you know, connecting those dots for us.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you. All right. I think the only thing left we have, Kathy, correct me if I'm wrong, is Kenny's going to give us a presentation on the Navigation Center. And it looks like he's here early. Thank you, Kenny. I appreciate that. So that is the last thing on our formal agenda. So good morning, Kenny. How are you?
Good morning. How you doing, commissioners?
Great. We're doing great. We're actually ahead of schedule, which is
Well, thank you for having me this morning. For the record, Kenny LaPointe, Executive Director of Mid-Columbia Community Action Council. And I'm here to talk to you about a couple things, one of them being the Navigation Center, but also wanted to share my screen and provide you guys with a presentation and sort of talk about some of the work that Mid-Columbia Community Action has done over the past year or so. Can y'all see that okay?
we
Great.
can, Kenny. Yes.
Wonderful. So I'm going to kind of skip over some of these slides because you've seen some of them before, but I also wanted to remind folks who we are. So Mid-Columbia Community Action Council is the community action agency that serves Hood River, Wasco, and Sherman counties. There's a community action agency in every part of our state and most parts of our country, and we are the one that serves you all. And as you can see from our logo here, our core values as an agency are equity, compassion, collaboration, community, and respect. We provide services to the three counties that we serve in the areas of housing, shelter, household utility assistance, and home weatherization assistance. And our primary funding sources are from state and federal sources. We also receive local dollars in some instances as well. Our mission is to build a better future for our community through partnerships and equity-centered programs that prevent and eliminate poverty and houselessness. And as I sort of talk about our work over the last year, I think you're going to see some of that. You're going to see the mission really resonate throughout the work that we've done, because this has been an intentional emphasis of our agency over the last year or so. So just a quick overview, hopefully quick, on our 2021 work. So in 2021, we provided over $4 million in services that were accessed by over 4,000 individuals across our three-county region. I will say that a bulk of our resources go to Wasco County. That is where many of our folks are accessing services. Part of that is because of access to housing is a little bit easier in Wasco County than Hood River County, and population size Sherman County is obviously much smaller. We also formed many collaborations across the region with key agency partners, including physical health, behavioral health. There's been a lot of talk about Center for Living. That's been a key partner for us. Folks working in employment and education, and also in other social service areas. We also updated our website this year, which may not mean a lot to folks. It means a lot to us because our website was previously rather unusable. And now we have a nice website that has good language access across multiple languages and has better functionality for the public. So you can actually apply for our programs online now. I also like to really hit on the local economic impact of our program. So obviously we provided, $4 million plus an assistance. A lot of that assistance, went to local area landlords. It went to utility providers, and so that those resources are recycled in the community, boosting the local economy. In addition, we play a key role in the local economy from an employer standpoint. So we had 9 people employed by Mid-Columbia Community Action at the end of 2020, and today we're approaching 27 people. So those are 27 full-time employees that receive wages from us and also benefits and live and work in our communities. So they're recycling those dollars back into the local economy as well. So in 2021, we've provided over $1 million in utility assistance, helping people keep the lights on, keep heat in their homes, keep the water running. 2,713 people served, and 46.4% of those people were people of color, Latinx community members, and Native community members. In addition, we were able to weatherize 17 homes, a much lower data point than the weatherization or the household utilities program. However, the weatherization improvements are significant size improvements, and typically the weatherization of a home is somewhere around the $20,000 to $30,000 range per home. So a much larger job. It's a contractor related job. But with that program, 76% of households served were Latinx community members. I will note that a good majority of the homes we weatherized were manufactured homes that may have had poor air quality, very poor energy efficiency, bad health impacts because of the built home environment. And we were able to improve those things, resulting in overall better home energy efficiency and better built environment from a health standpoint. We also served 1,300 people in our housing programs. We provided 488 households in partnership with the Mid-Columbia Housing Authority with rent assistance. And I also like to remind folks that that rent assistance went into the hands of local landlords who may have been struggling due to folks' inability to pay rent because of COVID-19. So we're really able to stabilize the economy in some ways there. So, landlords continue to be able to pay their mortgage and keep their businesses running in the community. We also, the big number is on the shelter side of things. In 2020, we provided somewhere around 5,000 to 6,000 shelter bed nights across the region. In 2021, we provided nearly 21,000 shelter bed nights across the region. At our Dalles shelter site, we were able to transition 21 of the 81 folks served in that shelter into permanent housing. So that is the goal when folks come into our shelter, is to work with them on a housing case management plan and transition them into permanent housing, so that there's obviously permanency there. Another big outcome, I think many know that the setup of the pod pallet shelter site in the Dalles was to serve as non-congregate shelter to address COVID-19. It has been very successful in doing that. We've held multiple vaccination clinics at the site. We've held testing clinics at the site for the shelter guests. And I'm happy to report that in 2021, we did not have a single shelter client that tested positive for COVID-19. Also on our veterans programs, we have a supportive services for veteran families program. We were able to serve 18 veteran households with that program in 2021, placed 5 of those veterans into permanent housing and prevented eviction for 3 of them. We also housed 10 veteran families at the Hamilton Apartments, Hamilton Hotel here in the Dalles. So we're serving a lot of veterans in our program. We also expanded this program at the end of last year and added an additional case manager. So we're able to serve double the number of folks this next year in that program. So this is where we sort of turn to the future of Mid-Columbia community action. And I'm not going to read this to you because my next slides allude to some of this, but we have a lot of work in 2021, and a big piece of that work is our development of the Dalles Navigation Center. So I came to you all a few months ago and talked about the Navigation Center sort of at a higher level, and now we have some more details on the project. We received $1.5 million from the Oregon Legislature in the 2021 legislative session, thanks to the advocacy of Representative Bonham. That funding came through House Bill 5006, more known as the Christmas tree bill. The Navigation Center is going to be the future offices of our agency, along with the future location of our shelter site. So the current shelter site that we have right now is on city public right-of-way, not permanent. So this provides us with a permanent location, as well as the co-location of other partner agencies. So this is not just one agency moving into one building. This building has the potential to provide 8-10 different agencies providing holistic services to the clients that we serve. I also like to remind folks that we're not just talking about homeless services, we're also talking about poverty elimination services. So services that provide employment and career development opportunities, resume writing, that type of thing, as well as behavioral and physical health services. So you see partnerships on here with the Next Door, the Mid-Columbia Housing Authority, the Oregon Human Development Corporation, Bridges to Health, which has community health workers across the region, the Center for Living, again, that has been talked about multiple times this morning. Having the Center for Living integrated into this site is very critical to its success, because a significant number of the clients that we are serving are also Center for Living clients, and providing those Center for Living clients with some type of shelter stability is critical to their success in their behavioral health treatment. In addition, One Community Health is providing physical health services, is going to provide physical health services at the Navigation Center. They're actually coming out to our existing shelter site to do that on a weekly basis. We are also in talks with the Columbia Gorge Health Council about co-location, and then Nichiwana Housing, who serves Native community members living along the river, in particular at the inlet site. They will co-locate at the site. So with Nichiwana Housing and the Oregon Human Development Corporation and the Next Door, there is a culturally specific service aspect to the project, which integrates equity into the vision for the Navigation Center. So again, so the vision here is a one-stop shop. I like to ask folks to think about what it might be like to drive all over town, or take the bus all over town, or walk or ride your bike all over town, trying to find services from multiple agencies. And sometimes it's not just one town. Sometimes it's from the Dalles to Hood River. Folks are trying to access services everywhere. This creates a much easier point of access for people, where they can address their holistic housing and service needs, anywhere from housing instability and homelessness to poverty, to culturally specific services, to physical and behavioral health. As I went over before, that's why those partnerships that I mentioned previously are key. So we have identified a core project team working on the Navigation Center. That is the Housing Development Center, which is a affordable housing developer that specializes in affordable housing development and social services facilities development. They work statewide. And that is our development consultant on the project. We've also hired Access Architecture to be the architect on the project, and they also have experience in working in the Dalles. In fact, they did the affordable development up from the site that I'm going to introduce in a moment. We've also selected Bremick Construction to be our general contractor. Many of you know Bremick because they've done other projects in the community, like the community college, the Duffer School. They also did the One Community Health building. So they have a presence in the community. It was important to us, as you can see from sort of the next bullet point, it was important to us to keep as much of the work, the contracting work in the community that we could as possible. So it is a core value of the project to reinvest in the community as much as possible. We can do that through the hiring of local subcontractors, which Bremick has significant experience in doing, so we can invest dollars back into the community. We also have a priority to utilize businesses owned by veterans, women, Native, Latinx, and people of color. So that is an emphasis from a contracting standpoint. And then trauma-informed and equity-centered design is also important. So as folks come into the center, we want to make sure that the environment is not hectic, that it allows them to sort of come to a calming place and experience social services in a way that's really beneficial to them from a mental health perspective, and just how they feel when they come in the building. We want it to be trauma-informed. So when we decided some of these core values as a programming team, so all of the partners I mentioned earlier have been involved in the process of determining what are the core values of the project. This wasn't just Kenny deciding on what he wanted as the core values. It was a whole team of folks who are service providers throughout our community, as well as people with lived experience of homelessness. So they were included in the programming process, which happened over the last few months. Also in that process, we identified some of the key needs that could be built into the Navigation Center. Those needs are a place for community meetings for larger gatherings. And you'll sort of see a little bit more about that later on, but the project does have an emphasis on that. We have space identified for meetings of 50 to 75 people. A career resource center and computer lab is also something that I mentioned a little bit earlier. That was a sort of a core need identified in the community, and there is space for that as well, along with classroom spaces where we could teach financial education, budget management, GED type classes, and then sort of some post-secondary education work. A commercial kitchen, also a key aspect, which will be built into the center, both to serve the shelter guests, as well as provide commercial kitchen space should the community meeting space be used for larger gatherings that might require food service. And then lastly, drop-in childcare space for families receiving services. This was a key thing identified by our programming partners. And as you can imagine, a family who is coming in to receive services at the Navigation Center, they may have kiddos with them, and going to have an intensive case management conversation with Center for Living or One Community Health or our agency is something that you may not want to have your children joining you for. And so having a childcare space with a childcare provider that could take care of them during that time would be really helpful, and is also a trauma-informed practice for folks. So as far as site goes, this has kind of been one of the questions that everybody has had is where is this thing going to be at? And we were very fortunate that around November, December of last year that a community member stepped up and donated us 2.6 acres of land to be used for the Navigation Center. You can see that land identified here. It is sort of behind the Motel 6. It is on 7th Street. Again, 2.6 acres. And as I show the layout here in a second, you'll see that the Navigation Center and shelter will not be taking up the entirety of the property. And we do anticipate, as we build this out, we want to build flexibility with anticipation of permanent housing being able to be developed on the site in the future as well. So here is sort of the rendering, the site plan for the project. You can see 7th Street there. We have the Navigation Center on the front side. There is also a legend down below. So if you're curious as to what some of the stuff is, this is all sort of, this is where we're at in the planning process. Some of this could change as we get further into it, but this is our where we're at with site plan right now. So Navigation Center is close to 14,000 square feet, again, to provide access and services through anywhere from 8 to 10 different agencies, large community meeting space, commercial kitchen, childcare space, job training center as well. So this is not all office space. This is service space for folks. You have, lots of parking built into here, which is key, especially, we have staff that are going to be working there, potentially up to 50 people working there at any one time. And then we also have our folks who are staying in the shelter who will be utilizing some parking. We do have some shelter clients that have vehicles, and having access to those vehicles so they can get to and from employment is very important. Right now, our current shelter site does not have any parking for our shelter clients. In between the navigation center and the shelter, there is some sort of barrier space that includes a community garden, some canopies or gazebos for folks to hang out under. And then you see item D there is our shelter office, which will be built right next to the shelter site. We have 24/7 staffing on the shelter site, so we're not leaving things unattended to. We have a shelter staff person who is always there, security systems on the site as well. So we have full oversight of the facility 24/7. B there is our shower restroom trailer, which will continue to serve the shelter as it does right now. But this is pretty much the layout we have for the project. Again, plenty of parking. We also have bike storage spaces for folks, outdoor spaces for staff and community members if there is a community meeting that would be held there. And yeah, we're really excited to release this site plan to you all, so you can kind of see what we're thinking about. Additionally, I wanted to provide some examples of BREMIC projects. I'm sure many of you know about these projects in the community, but wanted to give you some visuals as to what we're talking about. We want to make sure that this project is seamlessly integrated into the community. It lifts people up. It raises the standard on community services throughout the region, and is an asset to the community. It is not, we don't want something that is seen as blight in any way. And so our intention, both from an operations standpoint and from a design and construction standpoint, is to create a valuable asset to the community. So big question is, what is the cost? Right now, our estimated costs are $5.8 million to get this thing done. We have $1.5 million from the legislature. As I mentioned earlier, we have $500,000 that the city of The Dalles has dedicated to the project from their American Recovery Plan Act dollars. The Oregon Health Authority has also provided a $50,000 planning grant, which actually opens up the door to some other Oregon Health Authority resources. We have a $400,000 contribution from one of the co-located agencies, the Oregon Human Development Corporation, which serves agricultural workers and Latinx community members. And then our agency will also be contributing $300,000 in real estate equity at a minimum into the project. Additionally, since this presentation was put together, we were able to get another $50,000 from Oregon Housing and Community Services for the project, bringing our current gap to $3 million. So the question will be, how do you get there, Kenny? So we obviously are here today to see if the county would be willing and able to contribute some funding into the project. There is also other potential funding sources from the Oregon Health Authority, which has somewhere in the range of $125 million coming available that will be released, and $8 million would be the maximum dollar figure per project that they would invest. That $50,000 planning grant that I mentioned we received from them gives us potential access to this funding. We're also in talks with Business Oregon about utilizing community development block grant funds. That is a sort of source of, not last resort, but a little bit further down the line due to the stringent requirements around the resource. But we've had multiple conversations with Business Oregon, and they're very interested in investing in the project. Oregon Housing and Community Services is also going to be releasing another $500,000 or another $4 million that will be dedicated towards the 8 navigation centers in the state. We are targeting using that money for operating support. over the first few years of operation. So it'll give us kind of a buffer as we set this thing up and get it going. We feel like that's the prudent move to make with those dollars as we go try and get other capital funds to make the project happen. And sort of my last question before I open it up to questions for you is you know, why I'm here today. I came a few months ago and kind of, I guess, fired a warning shot and said I'd be coming back and asking. And you know, the question here is will the county, or is the county willing to contribute some dollars into the project to ensure that it gets done? I think from a community buy-in perspective, it's really critical. Also, as we go out and seek other dollars from other funders, some of the questions that we receive is, what is the community support that you're getting around this? How are local governments investing into the project? And Wasco County's contribution could potentially help us bring to help us fill the gap in the project, because we could get additional dollars as the state and state agencies see that there is funding coming from our community. So with that, I am happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Great, Kenny. Wonderful presentation. As you know, I am on the board of the Mid-Columbia Community Action, and one of my favorite sayings these days is it's great to have Kenny as the new leadership for this organization, because I feel like we really have now a community action program that is truly in action and helping to and serving the most vulnerable of our communities. So great report, Kenny. And so I think I'm sure that you guys have some questions about this project. And I know that you've given us in the past like a 30,000 foot level. I think we're down to 10,000 feet now, Kenny. What would you say on this project? So I really appreciate you coming back and giving us a more detailed approach of some of the work that's happened since the last time you were here. So thank you. So Commissioner Kramer, you're unmuted. Did you have questions for Kenny?
Well, thank you, Chair. Great presentation, Mr. Lapointe. Did you state in there that 4123 is that Oregon Housing Community Services 500,000 potential for operating? Are those two together or are those separate?
House Bill 4123 is still moving through the legislature, so I'm not counting that resource at this point in time. So if it passes, there is potential that it could be utilized for operations of the navigation center, but not capital. It could be used for operations in the future, keeping in mind that House Bill 4123 requires us to meet two other criteria before being able to use the funds for operating. The $500,000 that I mentioned is a different funding source that Oregon Housing and Community Services received during the 2021 legislative session that is for sheltering activity. And they are dedicating, there's a $10 million pot remaining of that money that they are dedicating $8 million or $4 million of it to navigation centers. So it is not connected to House Bill 4123.
Could you, just so people, 4123 doesn't mean anything to most people. Can you tell us what that is? Because I think I remember what it is, but.
Yeah, so thank you, Commissioner Hagee. House Bill 4123 is a current piece of legislation that is being considered by the Oregon legislature during the short session. It actually just passed out of committee the other day, out of the House Housing Committee. And is on to Ways and Means. The bill establishes, I believe it's 8 pilot communities across the state. And the focus is on coordination across county and cities to do work to address homelessness. So it requires the building of a strategic plan and the development of sort of an office that coordinates homeless services. Mid-Columbia Community Action submitted a letter of interest to be a part of House Bill 4123. We submitted that letter of interest with the cooperation and collaboration of Wasco, Sherman, and Hood River counties, as well as the city of the Dalles and the city of Hood River. We were selected to be a part of that legislation. Again, it's going to Ways and Means, and if that bill does pass as stands, we would receive $1 million to do the homeless coordination work. Again, the funding would be for strategic plan development, setting an office for coordinated homeless services. We are already on the path to developing a strategic plan, so we won't need to utilize the funding for that. We anticipate if it does pass, we would be bringing some staff on to help us develop and implement a sustainability plan, funding plan, help us get more dollars to sustain homeless services over time. And then we could use the funding per our recommendation. We could use some of the funding to provide direct services to community members.
Thank you. And yeah, and to add to that, that million is over 2 years, and then there's a 5-year window that we have to continue to fund throughout the community. So a good program. Yes, it is in Ways and Means. I've reached out to Representative Smith's office, who is co-chair of Ways and Means and also a co-sponsor of 4123. So I think I'm not going to say congratulations yet, but I think this is going to make it through. So, so good work on all of that and keeping us up to date on that, Mr. Point. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner.
Okay, well, I don't think that we're really not ready to make a decision. I appreciate your presentation and your request of us. Are there any further comments or from the commissioners at this time? Commissioner Haney?
Just a quick question, I guess, the community development block grant. So have you, is that how realistic is that? I'm just wondering, like, so I think community development block grants have to go through a government agency. Is that right?
That is correct. So that is one logistical detail of CDBG funding in the large mix of logistical details that they throw at you. And we have been in conversation with the city of the Dalles about sponsoring an application or submitting an application on our behalf. There's been no finalization of that. Initial support from the city to help us through that. Again, there's other details that I would rather have sources that are a little bit simpler to use and don't tie our hands in other ways in the project, so we continue to maintain flexibility in how we run the programming. But Business Oregon has vetted the details of the project. We've had multiple phone calls with them to go over them. They're excited and interested in it. It's very different than any of the other navigation centers in the state because it brings this sort of one-stop shop place together, whereas other navigation centers are simply a shelter with a service provider. It's much different, and I will say that we have documented the process leading us to where we're at so that we can share it with other communities. We're hoping to leverage that as a resource to potentially, to the state as well, potentially to the federal government. Should they want to invest in other navigation centers, we could basically say, here is a blueprint for how you get it done in your community.
Yeah, good. Is the $1.5 million you have listed, is that the max potential there? Because I know we got like $2 million for Center for Living.
There's potentially additional dollars there because there is coronavirus relief funds also still available through Business Oregon, so we could potentially receive additional funding. The additional funding actually brings more logistical strings and details into the project. So layer 2 different CDBG programs on top of each other, and you get something that kind of makes your head spin a little bit. Not to say that we couldn't do it. Like I think we could successfully do it. But again, there's some timing challenges. We have to spend our 1.5 million, on a pretty tight timeline. The initial 1.5 we received, so we want to make sure that we're considering all that as we get this project done.
Yeah, that's great. No, I think you're right. There's CBG, community development block grants are really stringy. And they can be good, but they're really stringy. The only other comment I was going to make is one of your agencies you're looking to move into your thing is one of our clients. So you're trying to pilfer one of our leasees. So just I let you know that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth mentioning that when we're talking about co-location, I'm not saying that we're moving entire agencies into this building. We are moving the services that align with the folks that are being served. So
sure, no, that makes sense.
Yeah, so it's not, in some cases, we have a few agencies that are going to move their whole shop, but there's a lot of others where it's a partnership. They're gonna station a few staff members in the navigation center, and those staff members will work to serve the folks that come into the center.
Yeah, no, that's fine. The CCO actually leases a house from us, so Columbia Gorge Health Council.
Yep.
Cool. No, it's a good project. Obviously, you've done amazing things. The mayor's here with us today too, and he made some comments at City Council on Monday. And when you said at the beginning, I think you said you had 9 people, now you have 27 people working for you. My head was kind of blown away there. And as the mayor said, you've obviously done amazing work in a short period of time, on this issue specifically for our community and our region. So kudos to you and thanks for all the work that you do.
Thanks, Commissioner. I really appreciate that.
Another question I have, Kenny, maybe there's a couple agencies you mentioned that I'm not sure everyone, and certainly myself, are not entirely familiar with. So I wonder if you could elaborate just a little bit on Nichiwana Housing as well as the Oregon Human Development Corporation.
Sure. So I'll start with the Oregon Human Development Corporation. So Oregon Human Development Corporation is a statewide organization that provides services to agricultural agricultural workers and Latinx community members. So they're a culturally specific organization that focuses on those populations. They have offices in both Hood River and the Dalles. In fact, their office in the Dalles is sort of next door or down the block from us. They would be moving their Dalles office fully into this site and providing culturally specific services to those populations, which are obviously a big population in our communities. So we have a lot of agricultural workers, we have a large Latinx population. So making sure that we're serving the whole community at the Navigation Center is really important. They provide things like rental assistance. They can provide agricultural worker shelter. They also provide employment training too. So they help folks get their GEDs. They have a Department of Labor grant to help do that, a federal Department of Labor grant, and they work all over the state of Oregon. Nichiwana Housing is a new up and coming organization. You're going to hear a lot more from them. They're led by a woman named Deborah Whitefoot, who is phenomenal. They are currently located in Hood River and are going to be moving their entire offices into the Navigation Center. They are in the process of formalizing or forming their 501c3 nonprofit status. They are currently fiscally sponsored by an organization called Native American Youth and Family Center out of Portland. So their focus is on serving Native community members that live along the river. Think, Lone Pine, Celilo, Coburg. They're providing services to those sites. They're connecting people with housing resources who are Native community members. We actually, just completed our point in time count, and Nichiwana Housing did the point in time homeless count at the Inlu sites, which gives us a much better idea of what what the native population and their houseless numbers looks like. So this is a great organization doing great work in the community. We're super excited to be partners with them. They've already expanded the service reach much deeper into the native community as we've been partnering with them over the last year. Phenomenal organization.
Oh, thank you. Another question I have, will you be moving the pallet shelters onto the navigation center acreage? Yes.
Yes. Yeah. The sort of back part of that project, there was little squares on there. Those are where the pallet shelters will go on the site. So we're moving all of them, recognizing that we're not going to be able to stay in the public right-of-way spot we have right now. We're going to be moving all of them to this site. We're creating flexibility with the development too. So we are setting up pads where the pallet shelters will go, but we are also anticipating potential future opportunity to partner with the community colleges construction trades program and potentially have them come on site and begin to convert those pallet shelters, move them off the pads and have them utilize their trades program to build tiny home shelters on the project. So we would provide sort of career advancement opportunities while on the job training, sort of an incubation lab, but also serve the needs longer term of the folks staying in the shelter. What you didn't see is behind the shelter units, there's an additional 1 acre of property that we have that we are targeting for future permanent housing development. The goal in the end is to create enough permanent housing opportunities where shelter sort of becomes a thing of the past, but we have a long ways to go to get there. And we've got to stabilize and protect people, keep them safe now, which is why we have a need for a navigation center.
Thank you, Kenny. And just, I think one more question. Commissioner Hagee alluded to the growth in your organization from 9 to 27 employees. Do you expect that to continue, or was a lot of that funded by COVID funding that came down in the years 20 and 21?
I don't anticipate growth continuing to happen necessarily. It may. I heard some conversation a little earlier in the commission meeting about the federal infrastructure package. We do anticipate receiving additional weatherization resources, which could increase that program times 10. So we could have a lot more resources coming in there, which means we would expand that program area in particular. Absence of getting resources in like that, I think we have a good staffing size. We're investing in partner organizations a lot, so they are providing services. I mentioned Oregon Human Development Corporation, Michiwana Housing. We are helping to fund them so they can be sort of extensions of Mid-Columbia Community Action and reach the Native community, the agricultural worker community that we may not have historic relationships with, or the ability to respond culturally appropriately. So we're partnering with them to do that. So I don't anticipate us expanding much more than where we're at now. I'm incredibly invested in ensuring that we're stable where we're at. And that's why we've been going after a lot of other resources and projecting out the use of other dollars for sustainability of our programs. Like part of this is we need a new facility to provide our services out of. So I don't know if I should publicly say this, but we have 25 people today. We're hiring 2 more to get us to 27, and our current building has 1 bathroom.
You can say that here. Yeah, we get it. Yeah, thank you. All right, well, thank you. I think that concludes, unless the commissioners have other comments. All right, and just so you know, we are going to be recessing in a minute. We are going to have a work session. And one of the topics for today is to continue our discussion on the ARPA funds that we have received. And so, we will be talking about those dollars at 2 o'clock. So with that, thank you so much for being with us and giving us that update. I will go to commission call. So commissioners, what have you got for us?
Well, I would say that I have plenty to share this afternoon when I update you about all of the boards and commissions I'm on. I think I'll just do that then.
Me too. How about you, Commissioner Kramer? Anything for the good of the order here, commission call?
No, just following along with session, trying to keep on keeping on.
Yes, thank you so much for doing that. So as I mentioned, we do have a work session starting at 2 o'clock. I think the Zoom link will still be on the same webpage that it always is. We've got a very busy agenda. I don't know that we'll get through all of it. A lot of housekeeping. As I mentioned, we will be continuing our discussion on the ARPA funds, some housekeeping issues, and reports from all the commissioners on the boards that they're on, and whatever else comes up, time allowed. So those are those, for those of you on the call, our work sessions are really for the three of us to really just talk together about some of these issues. We generally don't make big decisions. It's not that we can't, but we generally just have discussions amongst the three of us, and at times with staff, and we don't do them very often, and they're a little clunky on Zoom. We used to do them in person, which allows us to kind of see each other and all those things. But since we're still, under COVID, best practices, we're going to do this on Zoom again. So Kathy popped in. Did you want to add something?
I just want to make sure the three of you stay put so I can get down there and get your signatures.
Downstairs at the Harding House, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. We will stay put, and we'll see you all back at 2 o'clock. And thank you. And I'm going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting.
Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you.
Recording stopped.